So, guys, I want to talk about Athena versus Mercedes Monet, and this is definitely one of the things that can really elevate AEW or it can really hurt AEW. And I also think that after you did Tony Storm versus Mariah May, there is a lot of energy within the women's division. There's a lot of just, Tony Storm just being on the main event of shows, people saying that, hey, this match should have main evented AEW Revolution over the crappy men's title. And sometimes, if you want to have what John Moxley is doing, and what he's doing is he's trying to hold the title hostage, you need to do something like have another title mean something, and that's kind of like really important as well, really. And I think that when they're doing Tony Storm versus Megan Bayne, it's definitely a step down. They really need to find good opponents for Tony Storm. So really, what matters a lot now is Athena and Mercedes Monet. And my thoughts are this: that first of all, this is like a really big thing that they can do, like title versus title. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, that Ring of Honor really has to matter for AEW. They need to do one of two things. They either need to get rid of Ring of Honor, or they need to revamp it and make it their developmental and give titles to wrestlers who are on the AEW roster who actually matter and who actually can create some sort of momentum. And then when these wrestlers on the Ring of Honor roster are doing well, they go to the main roster. Like, for example, Billy Starks and Blake Christian. Yes, they've lost, but there's still like hope for them to do well, really. Like it needs to be developmental. And the way to do that is you need to make, Athena eventually be the person that takes the TBS title off of Mercedes Monet. Or you put Athena in the, or she drops her title and then you put her in the Owen Hart tournament and she wins for the women's side. Those are like two options that you can do. But I also feel with Mercedes Monet, one thing about her is that she's like the top heel for women right now. Mariah May is, out of action because obviously she lost her feud. So it's almost like now the top villain is Mercedes Monet because people say with all the titles, she doesn't really deserve it. She has booking power. She doesn't deserve the millions of dollars she's being paid a year. And she also has in her contract the ability to pick and choose when she wins and loses. That's what people speculate. And then the other thing about it is that it's good because then you don't know if she's ever going to lose or not. And that's a good thing because it creates unpredictability. And that's been the huge issue with AEW is they're not good with unpredictability. Like, for example, when you did Hulk Hogan versus Andre, there was good unpredictability because Andre was undefeated. He was such a big monster, and they really showed that off, really, that even though you kind of knew Hogan was going to win, they gave you some uncertainty, and uncertainty is very important. And this is why this could be a major thing. So I do think that there's a couple things I want to talk about in this regards. I'm a little worried about when they're going to have their match. Like, I think it's going to be an AEW Dynasty because they're short a couple of matches, but that's a bad idea. It should be the main event of AEW Final Battle Ring of No, it should be a Super Card of Honor in Atlantic City. Because the thing is, you need to have main events that actually mean something for Ring of Honor. You have to be like, we're in Atlantic City. We have to make sure this show matters. And the stupidest thing that they can do is they can be like, okay, well, Athena versus Mercedes Monet is going to happen at Dynasty. Athena loses her women's championship. And Athena's going to be in the Owen Hart tournament facing Tony Storm in the future. And then Mercedes Monet is going to face, whoever in Ring of Honor. It could be a jobber. It could be a rematch. But it would be bad in a lot of ways if they do that because I think that, again, there's a lot of good matches on Dynasty. But you have to make Ring of Honor matter as well, really. And it would be very deflating if they put the title on Mercedes Monet. They'll say you're exactly like Chris Jericho, where you're trying to collect the Ring of Honor titles because they don't mean as much as the AEW championships, So it would feel that type of, oh, well, you want to hold on to this title for as long as you can, really, because you want to actually just, you want like a cheap lineage. For example, like Chris Jericho is a 10-time world champion because the Ring of Honor Championship is a World Heavyweight Championship. So if he wins 6 more times, he will be tied with Ric Flair and John Cena. And if he gets it 7 more times or 8 more times, then he's gonna be, he's gonna get the record. But that's a cheap way to do that, really, and you don't want to do that. So I think it'd be deflating if she does become champion, or they don't have the match. If they have the match at Dynasty instead of AEW Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor in Atlantic City, that would be like the right match to have, really. And I think that ultimately, like I've said, I think the problem is, who should win or lose. And I think that there's two problems, that they both should win. And I'm going to talk about why Mercedes should win. That it would make her the top heel, and then she could enter into the Owen Hart's tournament and face Toni Storm. So you would have ultimate babyface versus heel at AEW All In. And you would have like nuclear heat on Mercedes Monet for like just taking everything, really. So you'd have a great match with her versus Toni Storm. And honestly, if they have a match, there should be a stipulation that Mercedes loses. She loses all of her titles. So you kind of have a reset button on her. That should be the way to do it. Or you have her beat Toni Storm. She's like a 6 or 7-time world champion. And then you eventually have like a Billy Starks or Mariah May or Harley Cameron or another underdog female type of wrestler actually take it off of her. But you have to kind of set that up, really. Like she could be the ultimate, final boss, really, But the detriment would be this, that first of all, Mercedes Moné is not Brock Lesnar. Like, Mercedes Moné, she's a small body person. Like, honestly, like, Mercedes Moné versus Awesome Kong, Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander, Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale, Mercedes Moné versus, Nyla Rose. In a real fight, she would not win because they're bigger body people, they're bigger body women, they're bigger, they're stronger, really. So the fact that you're going to make her maybe a 6-time champion or a 7-time champion is unrealistic. It really comes off like, you're getting it just to get it, really. That's just, that's how it comes off, really. And then the other thing, too, is that she becomes the ROH champion. What happens to ROH, really? Because I think less people would be interested if Mercedes was holding the title. And then it's almost like, then you have two other options. What do you do with that brand? Do you make it about Mercedes and she encourages other women to rise up and step up? Then you have Mercedes versus Layla Hirsch, or Billy Starks goes back to Ring of Honor and then faces Mercedes. Like who do you really elevate? Who do you really elevate in Ring of Honor if you make Mercedes Moné like the final boss, really, for that title? And then the other thing, too, is that you run into a Chris Jericho situation where he's holding up the ROH men's title and he has creative power. Like, as I said, if you want to have a good dynasty match, if you really want the men's Ring of Honor title to mean something, you would do Powerhouse Hobbs versus Chris Jericho, but he's doing Bandito versus Chris Jericho, and Bandito should not win in any way. He's not ready for a world heavyweight title. So you may have Mercedes Moné say, hey, since I'm the champion, I'm going to face who I want to face. So I'm going to face Layla Hirsch. I'm going to face other women on that roster, like Lady Frost and other people that most people don't know about, like Red Velvet and other people who are not majorly over. Because that way she goes through all opponents. She'd be like, hey, well, these women are facing me, but they're not ready to be champions. They don't have like the charisma. They don't have like the win record. They don't have the personality and the bravado you need to have to be a champion. So it could allow her to do that. And the same thing with Chris Jericho. After Bandito, he can say, well, I'm not going to focus on Hobbs. I'm going to focus on maybe Blake Christian. I'm going to focus on Commander, maybe Sammy Guevara. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's going to always avoid the people that could be the most threatening to the title or more deserving to hold the title or visually better. Because I think, as I've said many times, Hobbs should be the ROH champion. If they're doing Bandito versus Chris Jericho at Dynasty, and then they're going to do Chris Jericho versus Powerhouse Hobbs at at Supercard of Honor, that would be the match to see, really. But I also feel that but that's the big issue with Mercedes. It can allow her to just follow Chris Jericho's example of I'm not facing the people that are the most threatening to the title, really. The next thing that I would say is that I would talk about Athena. Like, what are the benefits of her beating Mercedes Monet? That Mercedes Monet, it's good for her to take time off of television because she's been on television for such a long time. I don't feel she is a ratings draw. She has really great matches, but I don't really feel that anybody who works with her gets elevated at all. Like, she almost reminds me of John Cena, where a lot of times anybody who faces John Cena becomes irrelevant, really. So it's almost like, you have like Athena win, and then you kind of put all the attention on her, and you're like, hey, what happens when Athena faces, Mariah May for the TBS Championship, or Willow Nightingale, or, Nyla Rose or whoever. Like, she's not going through main roster opponents. So I think that would be a benefit. And then the other thing, too, is that every title in AEW is held by all the AEW championships are held by heel wrestlers, except for Daniel Garcia, who is a babyface, but also the Hurt Syndicate. They're villains, even though they're over with the crowd and all that. So yeah, but you can't have everybody be a villain in AEW holding a title, because it becomes very monotonous. So it will break up the monotony. And I think the other thing too is you have to validate Athena, because she's almost 1,000 days as a Ring of Honor champion, and it's almost like, what do you do with that, really? Do you have her just lose to Mercedes Moné? Do you have her not even reach that? And then you have people say, hey, maybe Mercedes pulled some power to say we need to take the title off of Athena, because I'll be damned if she ever becomes a 1,000-day champion. I need to just sabotage her. And then it's also like, after you take that away from Athena, what really happens, really? So it validates Athena's 1,000 days by having her, it validates Athena by having her beat Mercedes Moné and then reaching 1,000 days. And then she may say something like, after 1,000 days, I'm going to do a tournament. I'm going to enter the Owen Hart tournament. I'm going to give up my title after 1,000 days because I want to go after bigger and better, really. So I really think that that's all good. But I also say with Athena that another thing about making her the champion is that, there are people who like her matches. There are people that review her matches and say, hey, it's good, really. So why break the formula? Why kind of take Athena off of Ring of Honor? Why take the title off of her once she gets a great response, really? And then also the other thing about Athena is she is a big baby face. She has really great music. She's somebody that has some, popularity to her. So, you can't just strip her of that, really, because that's kind of one of the issues with AEW is that they're not good with momentum, because you have something like Wardlow who's mega over, you have the Acclaimed that were mega over, and you have a lot of other people who are really mega over, and then it kind of just dissipates. So do you want Athena to be thrown into that garbage pile, really? So it's not a good idea. It's important to kind of keep that momentum alive, really. It's almost like, what do you look forward to? What do you look forward to on Ring of Honor pay-per-views? If Athena has great matches, she ends shows, and then and then you just don't allow her to be champion anymore. But if you take the title off of her, and then it's almost like, what do people look forward to on Ring of Honor if they don't have her? But there are some detriments to this. That first of all, having Athena beat Mercedes Moné could be bad, because it's almost like as I said, to make somebody a 1,000-day champion is overrated. And then people were talking about how She's the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion. For a long time, it was Samoa Joe, but now it's Athena. So it's almost like saying that maybe she is overrated. And then the other thing too is that more people know about Mercedes Monet. There's actually people who have talked to me and said, hey, they didn't know Athena Ember Moon was wrestling in AEW because she's been so like hidden and stuff like that. But in my opinion, the best thing is Ember Moon. Athena, she really needs to go to the AEW main roster. I really think that she should beat Mercedes Monet and become the TBS champion. And Mercedes Monet can like wrestle in Japan or take a break, or they both enter the Owen Hart tournament, and then you kind of lead to a rematch where they're in the semifinals and the winner faces Tony Storm. And you can even do like a fatal 3-way between all the women for like all for like the titles for the TBS Championship, Women's Championship, and ROH Championship, and then you come up with either a new title or you're like, hey, the person just holds it and they're like a triple champion, or they're like, hey, I'm gonna just drop 2 of the titles, because I just don't want that responsibility of going everywhere really. I wanted to spread the wealth really, but these 2 people can't have it. So those are possible options really, but I also feel, as I said too, that with Athena, she has momentum, she has charisma, and they need to take every wrestler that they have on the roster that can speak well on the microphone, that can generate a reaction, that's not stumbling or not like Hook, who comes off like a freshman in high school, and all that stuff. You got people who can talk and be a personality and get over and have great matches. Those are people you should push really. So Athena has that, and why just kind of ruin it. But those are my thoughts really. I think that Athena is very deserving of a lot of success. If she's keeping Mercedes Monet, they need to have it at the right time. They have a lot of great matches at Dynasty. This could be a great addition to it, but you're better off doing it at AEW in Atlantic City for the Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor main event, because you have to make sure that pay-per-view sells. And also they understand that, they just got to do right by the women's division. And it's not right to put all the titles on Mercedes Monet and then get to a point like, hey, we just don't know what to do really, because you keep winning everything, or you're not setting up people who can not just take the title off of you. You have to kind of know how to. And Dusty Rhodes did this when he was a booker, that he knew how to book himself, where he knew that him holding the title was important at like 1 or 2 times really, but he also knew that a lot of times he shouldn't be winning. He knew when to lose really, and that's important if you have any type of creative control, because you have to make sure everybody looks strong, not just you. And that's kind of my main argument for Athena being the right one to beat Mercedes Monet.